Hi guys, so today I'm going to be covering a concept that I think is very important for one-handed Roux, but I think is also absolutely necessary to get fast at 3 by 3. But I'll cover it in the context of OH because just to make it more interesting and to see how it applies. So a couple years ago, someone proposed that we do first block while simultaneously orienting edges, either second block edges or all edges. And the reason I don't like that idea is one, because it would add extra moves to the beginning of first block or throughout first block, and the benefit that you get out of it isn't that great because of what I'm about to show you. So the whole purpose behind orienting edges during first block is that you try to get a two-gen second block, which is what everyone thought was the best. But since that's extra moves, you can avoid it by forcing a two-gen second block during second block without actually using any moves. So you're probably thinking like, what? How do you force things without using extra moves? Well, the answer is wide moves. If you just manipulate what kind of wide moves you use during second block, you can orient edges and influence what you're solving next so that you end up with a lot of CFOP or ZZ style pairs, which are pretty fast and finger tricky. So the main way this is done is in a sequence of 3 steps. So near the end of first block, what you want to do is orient your DR edge. While you're solving the DR edge, you want to orient the first pair edge. While you're solving the first pair, you want to orient the second pair edge. So as you can see, like it's very step by step in order. So while you're solving one thing, you're orienting the next thing. So I'll just show you this solve where you can see an example of it. So we'll do this block, red, white. So I'll put that in the back left like that. The other pair, or the edge that goes with it, is right here. So we can pair this up with that with an R prime. Then we can see this comes over here, this goes over there. So I'm going to bring this up to here and then solve it. And we'll pay attention to this edge so I can show you what I'm going to do with it. So solve that in the back. You wide prime, that's solved over there. My other pieces are this one and this one. So I'm going to go like this. Stack them on top. Now here we have a decision. We can either do F2, but what that's going to do is bring this down here and make me do an R wide 2, which I don't want to do. And I want to keep the DR edge oriented. So I'm going to solve it like this. Okay. And now I can solve this. And as I said, when you're solving the DR edge, what we want to do is orient the next pair's edge. So the next pair's edge, I see this one first, and it's already oriented. So I'm just not going to do any wide moves to make sure this stays oriented. And here we can do some corner influencing, like that. So now we have the corner and the oriented edge that we preserved, like this, and we're about to solve it. Okay, we're about to solve it in the back. We find the next pair edge, this one. So if I do a normal R, it's not going to orient, but I want to orient the next pair edge, so I'm going to do an R wide, like that. And now we essentially had both pairs 2-gen without thinking very much about EO, just looking ahead. So that's basically what this concept is. You just look ahead to the next pair and make the decision to either do a wide move or a single layer move in order to orient it and force the RU gen pair. So once again, during first block, you try to orient DR. While solving DR, you try to orient the first edge. And while solving the first pair, you try to orient the second edge. Now, this isn't a hard rule that you should follow, and you shouldn't do it every solve, because in what I'm going to show you next, it doesn't really work out so nicely in terms of EO. But what does happen is that you still have to make decisions between R wides and single layer R moves. So don't get too what's the word for it? Don't get too dogmatic about trying to orient the edge every time, because there's a lot of cases where having the edge misoriented is actually better. And here you'll see some of that. So blue-white block this time, we have the thing solved, and we have this pair. So I'm going to solve this with this. So now it's like in the back, and we see this ended up here, the DR edge. So instead of like moving it away or anything, I'm going to leave it there so that when I do the B prime, it's just going to solve. Okay, so now we're looking around the cube and we see we can either do this pair or this pair. So this one is misoriented, and this one is also misoriented. However, I still think like you shouldn't do an R wide just to get edge orientation for this one, because the better solution is R and then doing a wide move here. And then here, this is actually oriented. So do R prime, but it's not really, it's hard to think about orientation when they're on the bottom because it doesn't really make sense. But when they're on the top, if you can solve it with R and U moves, then it's oriented. But on the bottom, you just have to go with whichever is going to match the corner. So if this was orange, we want to have that orange, or you know what I mean. So bring that to the back and solve. So there wasn't really much thought about edge orientation because nothing was really on the top, and the pairs ended up being in positions where we just needed them to stay on the bottom, the edges, so we can match them up. So yeah, like I mentioned, always keep in thought what your R wide and R move differences are going to do, and always be looking ahead to the next edge of the next pair so you can decide which one is going to set up the better pair. Usually, it's going to require orienting the edge with an R wide move or preserving its orientation with an R. However, there's quite a few cases, and I don't have time to show everything because there's literally thousands, but there's quite a few cases where you want to keep the edge misoriented because it's going to produce a more efficient pair. Thanks for watching.